Hello and welcome back to the SpaceX in the News podcast, where today I am joined by Everything SpaceX.
Hi, my name's Alf Branch, and as you just said, I run Everything SpaceX at SpaceX 360, which is anyone listening, that's probably what you'll know me for. And yeah, we've got lots to talk about today.
Yeah, we've got Starship, SN11, SN15 now starting. We've got Inspiration 4, Crew 2. We've got a lot to talk about and not enough time probably.
Yeah, so should we get started with a
We'll get
little review
started.
of SN11?
We'll go with SN11. Okay, so we obviously all saw it fly. Well, I'm sure most of you did. We know it probably wasn't the best flight ever, if we're being totally honest with the weather conditions. But we saw the ascent and everything, and it was. I don't know about you personally, but I think that the fact that they got another ascent underneath them and they still got runtime with the Raptors is quite a good thing, despite the
Yeah,
demise at the end, you could say.
so I think there's actually been quite a bit of panic, after this, and a lot of people say, oh, it might not work and stuff. I think if you look at all the flights, you look at SN8, SN9, SN10, SN11, all four
Yeah.
of them have had pretty much perfect descents, perfect belly flops, which was pretty much unproven before. So the progress they're making is still pretty significant, and the one last thing they need to try and correct is the landing flip, and with time, hopefully, they'll work that out. And obviously, it's not easy drawing parent from the header tanks and then landing, but I think with time, it'll get better, and hopefully, the upgrades to SN15, um, it's already got some sort of upgrade that means it's already fixed for its flight.
Yeah.
But Elon has comments from SN11, so we have a look at that, and then we can sort of talk about
Yeah.
that.
So, let me try and pull up your tweet. So basically, I think what was it that they had a header tank problem again?
Yeah, so what Elon said, if I just get it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and find it now. Um,
So,
you know, SM15 has rolled out, and it's said to have hundreds of improvements based on software, on avionics,
yeah,
just general design updates. It's meant to be the next iteration in a way, and it's hoped that it will have addressed the issues of the previous lot, but it. I think the only good thing with SN11, other than the good ascent and everything, was the fact there was fog. Because I think that personally, if there wouldn't have been that fog and we'd have seen the big explosion, it probably would have been a bit negative press type thing for the
yeah.
operation, because they'd have all
See,
seen it.
that is a very good point. I think in a way, for us like space fans and stuff, in some ways it would be really cool to see the explosion. But like you say, the media would have latched onto that, and it would have just been
Yeah,
everywhere, and quite a bad name. So actually, going back to S11, I asked Elon how the investigation into S11's RUD was going. RUD, if you don't know, is Rapid Unscheduled Disassembly, and he said ascent phase, transition to horizontal, and control during freefall were good. So in other ways, going up to 10k and the belly flop, they were perfectly fine, like they have been SN8, SN9, SN10.
yeah,
But he says a small CH4 leak, so methane, which one of their propellants led to a fire on engine 2, fried part of the avionics, causing a hard start attempting landing burn in the methane turbo pump.
yeah.
And they say they're working out really hard to try and fix it. So I think if SM50's launch going to be in, like, let's say a couple of weeks, it should hopefully be fixed by then.
We
And
we saw
obviously,
a 22-day turnaround for SN11, which was the fastest yet. So 22 days from being on the pad to launch, which was very
and I
fast.
guess, yeah. So 'cause it's like a kind of new iteration, like you said, as you
Yeah,
thrust plug and stuff, that might increase testing time slightly.
yeah,
So in terms of the testing that's upcoming for SM15, so obviously we had Rollout yesterday,
yeah.
and what we already know is there's more TPS tiles. That's thermal
Yeah, I
protection
think I
system.
saw there's about
Um,
800 odd on there now,
yeah,
which is almost
and
double what we've seen before.
yeah, exactly. So that's fairly significant.
Hmm.
That's one of the things we can physically see that's changed. And then in terms of the testing campaign, we can expect from today, possibly per Boca Chica road closures, that there could be an improved test.
Yep.
Um, and then they'll move on to a cry-proof test,
Yeah,
Uh, they
because
want to first do these things.
after that crawl
Um,
proof, they'll want to get the Raptors installed ready for the static
yeah,
fires because
exactly.
they've got
Yeah,
the thrust simulators on there to because of the new design of the thrust puck. So they want to prove out that that is going to be a good design, and then hopefully it is all good, and then we can move on to the static fires. And after that, it should go quite quickly. I think SN11 had 2 static fires before launch, so it's just that
yeah.
they're just testing out the new designs, and then they'll move on, hopefully.
And then we can. Um, some people say we can expect a launch. I think a NASA space flight said somewhere like 1 to 2 weeks. But I think that if everything goes right. And as we
Yeah.
know through testing and uh, throughout the prototypes, it's not really the case. So
Mm.
a launch may be possible this month still,
Yeah.
but most likely a launch probably next month. And I think this has one of the better chances yet due to the upgrades, but I think we'll have to wait and see because, as we know, the Starship program is massively unpredictable.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite proven. You know, we saw SN8 get very close to landing, and then we saw SN9 get further away. You know, it's going to be a step forward. Then something might happen. You might have to take a step back. But the idea of the program is it's still taking a step forward in a way. Um, you know, the improvements will hopefully the hundreds of improvements which have been said to have happened.
Yeah,
One of them should address the issue. You know, and I'll be quite surprised if it didn't.
and every failure there is, it's helping them
Mm.
um, move forward with all sorts, and that's not an issue. So, um, and then there's this slight debate, I think, also with the Falcon SN11. Going back to that,
Yeah.
um, whether they should have launched that, and I think ultimately. Um, SpaceX, obviously, they have everything with them to decide what they should. And the only thing that I found interesting about launching the Falcon was, say something did go wrong, which it obviously did. um, it would have helped with the investigation to
Yeah.
actually physically see the explosion. I think
Yeah.
they still obviously have telemetry and everything, but I think that's an interesting talking point from there.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we could see that SpaceX were quite confident in SN11 in a way, because you know we had an Elon tweet saying this is the time we're targeting. You know, he said they're targeting 8 a.m. local, which we've never really had before. It's always been we will test during this day on this window, so it felt like they were quite confident in the fact that they wanted to publicise it. So I feel like they felt. I think SN8 or the early ones they probably wouldn't have launched in the fall because they'd have wanted as much data as possible.
yeah,
But I think they generally believe that with SN11 it either had a really good chance of landing or they believe that they wouldn't gain any more in a way. They've got enough telemetry, but I do I do think that I mean an hour or two later the vault did clear, but at the end of the day, you know, they're going to launch in the weather. There might be them saying, "Look, let's prove we can launch in some poor visibility." Even though it's still early on, it's still only the upper stage. They probably just said I think there's a good chance they wanted to just get SM15 out and just wanted to get S11 off the pad.
yeah. And
Because yeah, they've
it's a
been
good point because it does show their confidence somewhat, I think.
mm,
And I think moving forward, I think there may start to be more significant ones if SM15 doesn't work. But I think
yeah,
there's so many more prototypes to go. I think they've got many more chances and they will learn. You look at Falcon 9 landings, it took quite a while.
yeah,
And this is another step up. This is a lot harder, especially when it's Starship trying to land from orbital velocity.
yeah,
It's going to be tough. But with enough attempts, SpaceX always seem to prove themselves, don't they?
yeah.
So we'll see ultimately. Yeah,
You know, it's if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and hopefully it will start to happen. I think that with SM15 coming, you know, they want to get through the design. And I think even if it doesn't work, eventually they'll just put one on top of a super heavy in a way you could say, which is always an
yeah.
option. But
Like it's
yeah, it's going to
they'll
be interesting.
they'll try and nail the landing first, 100%.
Yeah,
But if you do think about it, they could probably put one on top of each other. And obviously, they need to do tons of testing before that. But
yeah,
they could do that. And there's a decent chance it'll work out pretty well on ascent. It'll reach orbit. But like I say, the hard part, where you've got to land a massive super heavy booster, possibly by catching, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, that's a
And
story for a little bit later on.
yeah, and and then landing Starship is the hardest part of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, you look,
It's not easy.
you have to look at Falcon 9 and say, it took them a while to get that landing from, they had the F9R where they were hopping it about, similar to what they're
Yeah,
doing at the moment in a way, and eventually that blew up. Stuff happens, but eventually they went, right, we're going to launch, and we're going to lose a few on the way, but we're going to get it eventually. And I think that it took Falcon 9 a lot of missions to be able to do it, but now you look at where we are now, where it's very reliable. It's kind of the same type of story, proving out the technology, and then demonstrating they can do it through doing it.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly what the whole program's about.
Yeah,
Um, shall we talk a little about them more on Super Heavy now, which is obviously
yeah.
quite interesting.
We will go super
Um,
heavy.
and we got some fairly recent news actually.
Yeah,
So
this was very
there's a number of
interesting.
things. Yeah. So straight after the SN15 flight, Elon said BM1 was to be scrapped. So that most
Yes.
likely is currently in the high bay. Now that it's been fully stacked, it'll most likely just be scrapped now.
Yeah, because
It was
they've
made,
got they've got the high bay empty at the moment because they've just rolled out SM15. So if anything, if it is gonna get scrapped, I assume it will happen in the next few days or coming weeks. Then we should start see BN2 probably rise quite soon, to be honest.
yeah. So he he said BM2 hopefully stacked by the end of April, and that is optimistic, I think, to say the least. I
Yeah,
think the forward dome of BM2 was sleeved yesterday, I believe.
yeah, I
Um,
saw that. Yeah,
so there's some progress there.
mm.
Because ultimately BN1 was a manufacturing pathfinder. Initially thought, oh, maybe it could do a small hop.
Yeah,
That didn't happen. And then we thought, okay, it might get cry proof, maybe a few wraps installed, then maybe a stack fire. Obviously that didn't happen. But BM2 will probably I believe Bus Dome, I think,
yeah,
had 8 wrapped amounts, I think. So there could be up to that many. Probably not quite that many, but something like that.
mm.
Um, and then yeah, so we'll see about that.
Because
Um,
BN2 will hop because we saw BN1 is 100% manufacturing pathfinder because I think they even had to cut a ring off of the
yeah,
lock section to get it to stack properly. So you, from that moment, I don't think they were intending to fly it anymore because it just didn't seem reasonable.
yeah, agreed. And I think so. The plan would probably be obviously BM1 manufacturing pathfinder, like I said. BM2 maybe cryo, maybe
Yeah.
static, maybe a small hop. And then
Mm.
currently BM3, as NASA spaceflight reported a few weeks ago, that may be the orbital super heavy.
Yeah,
Um,
and then we got a reply from Elon
but
saying that is the plan at the moment. So that's quite good in the fact that we know that's a plan. Whether it will happen because I mean they were saying that Mark 1 back in the old days would do 10-15 kilometer hops, and we got to the cryoproof test. But I think it's very plausible that BM3 flies because the boosters are kind of different to the
yeah,
Starship. There's not I mean the only thing new about the boosters really is the Starship. Not Starship, is the Raptors and how big they are. Um,
yeah. And the sheer number is huge.
yeah, the sheer number is huge, but then you have to look at Falcon Heavy where they had 27 engines like at the same time. They've got experience with the booster section. I think I'm quite confident with it. I think a couple will be lost on the way, but I think that ultimately it will take a lot less time than it did to Falcon 9 with super heavy landings. To be totally honest.
Yes, and absolutely. And then so we also spotted, I think either yesterday or the day before,
Yeah,
a super heavy frustome again, and this one looks like it was for BN3. It's
yeah,
28 holes, 28 wrapped amounts, and
28
that's
Raptors.
extremely interesting. And that kind of verifies the fact that it looks like they're aiming that to go orbital.
Yeah,
Um, so that's really interesting, I thought.
yeah. I think it has to be said that they wouldn't be putting the 28 Raptors on there if they weren't planning on going orbital because we've seen that BN2 it's got 4 Raptors I believe on it, so they
Most
haven't.
likely, probably 4 to be fair. Yeah,
Yeah, there's not the other like 24 outlets on it. That's what they're planned for it. So I believe that if that's what they've planned for it, that's what they're going to try and do.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And then what was very interesting, and yesterday as well. Yesterday was a busy day with Starship. Um, we also found out FAA. There was an FAA filing, and it confirmed. I'll read it out.
Yeah.
SpaceX is proposing a 469 inch, I think, tall launch tower with a 10, or maybe foot. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
469-foot tall launch tower with 10-foot lightning rod to lift this U rocket and booster on the launch mount
which,
and to catch the super heavy booster upon return from launch.
which is
And
insanely
so
massive.
yeah, it's verified the fact that SpaceX really are aiming to catch the super heavy booster. Which,
Yeah.
when Elon first said it, let's be honest, we all thought he was
We thought,
joking,
yeah.
taking the mick a little bit. But it sounds like they're planning to do it. And Elon also said yesterday, and someone asked, how do you plan on doing that by the Griffin? And he was like, so the low point just below the Griffin,
Yeah.
that's their plan to catch it. And he said shock absorption is built into tower arms. And since tower is the ground side, it can use a lot more mass to arrest booster downward momentum.
See,
And so that's their idea. And obviously, a plan for it, actually making it a reality is going to be really tough.
we all thought he
But
was nuts at
hopefully it works.
first, but
Yeah,
it sounds fundamentally good. Moving the mass off the booster onto the launch tower makes sense. I can't picture it yet because it's insane. No one's ever done anything like
yeah,
it before,
it is
but
bonkers. Yeah.
it does sound like it could work in a way, if you know what I mean. It doesn't.
Once he said
I've
it,
heard crazier ideas.
yeah. Once, well, the Starship idea of catching it up the
Now that
sky
I don't
is,
believe one bit.
yeah.
I,
And I think in the ideal world they do that, but I think it becoming a reality is so small.
yeah.
Um, and then also there's just going back to sort of raptors.
Mm,
There's been up to six raptors have been found in a tent behind, I
yeah,
think,
that's a lot.
one of the Starship prototypes. So there's clearly a growing number of raptors in Boca
Mm.
Chica, and obviously they're going to need that for not only upcoming Starship prototypes, but more for these super prototypes as we build towards that 28 raptors.
So we essentially know at the moment that it's not going to be BN2 which comes out after SN15. It's going to be 16 and 17 because he said that they're going to fly BN2 from the orbital launch mount. They're not going to test it on the suborbital pad just because I think it's too
Yeah,
much mass.
and
I mean, a fully fueled one would crumple the test stand probably. So we can assume them six reactors are probably going to go to 16, SN16, SN17 maybe. Yeah, that they're going to have to start building up a
yeah,
lot of Raptors to support that super heavy development.
yeah, and luckily McGregor, as reported by NASA Space Battery again, there's a UVAPS test stand in McGregor, Texas, where they test their engines. That shows they're increasing their development
Yeah,
and their testing.
I can't remember
And
what their
that,
production
that
rate
just,
was at, but I think it's one every couple of days now or something along them lines, which is,
it might be. I'm not 100% sure, but
yeah,
yeah,
that was a
I
little
think it
while
might be
ago, but
significant.
they should be doing, it should be, I think it's a few a week or so, like one or two a week or maybe three, depending
Yeah,
on where they're at. But, when it's taking 25 to 30 days to test SN15 or SN11, it took that long, we can assume that they could build quite a few Raptors at that time. So the production rate is going up, and I think they're not going to have too much problem supporting super heavy, but at the same time, it's a lot of Raptors, it's a lot of
yeah,
engines.
and obviously been a lot of swap outs just with Blue Raptors,
Mm,
and
yeah,
that's naturally it's part of development. But when it gets to 28, you know,
yeah.
they're gonna need
I mean,
really
if
good reliability, aren't they?
if we're seeing 1 out of 3 being swapped out at the moment, if you had 1 out of 3 being swapped out of super heavy, you'd be taking 9 engines out, which is a
Yeah,
lot, and
exactly.
that take days upon days and days.
Yeah,
There's not going to be a lot of room left on the bottom of that booster when they've got 28 in there. So I think, these Raptors will be
yeah,
tested, and when they put them on when they put it on super heavy, they'll want to know they're good in a way.
yeah, 100%. Um, should we just talk about briefly the sort of future plans about it going orbital?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to quickly talk about that?
July 1st. So,
Yeah,
okay, it's been reported by NASA Spaceflight saying that they would be targeting a super heavy launch with, not super heavy launch, a Starship super heavy launch with BN3 and SN20 as the goal. So Elon said he got a reply from someone, I can't remember quite who, but he said that's the plan. So this is the plan. You know, they're planning to go orbital on July 1st, and I also saw an FAA document last night saying that they were planning on finishing constructing the launch tower for early July. So the it all points at an orbital launch attempt around July, but they've got a lot of testing to do before then. They've got SM-15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 maybe, unless if they still run them, because we don't know yet. You know, they went from SL-11 and they got rid of 12, 13, 14. So it'll be interesting to see, but July 1st is the goal. Whether or not it's plausible at the moment, it's hard to tell. I think in the coming months or two, we'll find out really if it is plausible and it is going to work. But hey, you've got to have a goal, haven't you? You know.
Yeah. So July is an aspirational target. It almost definitely won't happen, but it's the classic kind of SpaceX move to move them forward, make everything go fast, basically. And
Yeah.
going orbital this year, let's say, there's a few things that are crucial and may hold it back. So the orbital launch pad needs to finish construction first of all. We don't exactly know, and there could be delays to that. So that's one big thing. And there's more to come. Obviously, you know, the ground support and equipment tanks, as we've seen recently rolled out.
Yeah, we saw that today.
Orbital launch pad, yeah. Stuff like that to be finished. And then, like we kind of mentioned, Raptor production, you know, 28 Raptors, we need to be producing plenty of Raptors. And if you lose a Super Heavy and you lose that many Raptors,
Yeah.
you've got to be able to produce tons more. And they're not cheap either. So I think that's another slight issue, probably.
Yeah.
Or slight problem they may face. But I think that's the only real thing. But I think it's very much possible.
Here we go. Here's the
Actually,
GSE-1 tank for the mount.
yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
And it's quite cool to see how clean it is compared to the Starship prototypes. Yeah.
Yeah, we believe that's because it's got a lot. It's a higher width in terms of stainless steel. It's a lot bigger, so it's not gonna deform as much under welding. It's going to be a bit stronger. It's probably a little bit better insulation properties. So that should help with their propellant storage at the orbital launch mount. But they're slowly rolling out. I think the second one's in production at the build site at the moment. But they're starting to build up the infrastructure. They're starting to push for that orbital launch. You know, if it doesn't happen in July, they've got a good chance to happen in this year, I believe. I mean, it doesn't seem it doesn't seem unrealistic. It seems fast, but it seems like it's possible. It doesn't seem like it's saying we're going to go orbital tomorrow. You know, it feels like, you know, with the current development rates, it feels possible in a way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then that's mostly the latest Starship news. And up next we'll be talking about Ingenuity. That's a Mars helicopter. Which will be flying soon.
And we'll be taking some of your questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a bit about Inspiration 4 and Crew 2. So
yeah, we're going to mention them too. Lot Crew Dragon coming up. Okay. Right, let's get on to some questions then, because we got some of your Twitter last night, didn't we?
Yeah, so we got a few to answer.
And here's our first one we'll go with. So, do you want to give this one a go?
Yeah. So, the question. Do you want to read it out?
Yeah, it says, is anyone on the drone ship? How is it secured to deck? I'm sure that means Falcon 9. Or is crew nearby to come on deck and secure it for the voyage home?
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
There aren't any from the drone ship whilst it's landing. I believe so. When a drone ship goes out, either of course it's still love you or just read the instructions drone ship.
Yep.
Normally, there's a tugboat that goes along with it called Go Quest, I believe.
Yep.
And I think I can't be 100% sure, but I think the crew are in there, relatively far away during landing, just to oversee everything basically.
Correct. Yeah.
And yeah, so that's basically what happens.
But then the important part is once the Falcon 9 has landed. Hold on, I might try and zoom in on this picture a little bit. Once it has landed, essentially, you can see the little robot on the bottom, which grabs called the Octograbber. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'll try and make this a little bit bigger. and you can see on the bottom where it grabs on the bottom of the robot. Hold on, let me make that a little bit better. There we go. We can see it a bit better there. So you can see these little pillars at the bottom, which is essentially an automated robot which comes on and grabs on the bottom of the rocket to hold it still for the way back. I believe some crews do board the drone ship after it has landed, and once the vehicle is saved, but mainly it remains autonomous until they get back into port, unless you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's well said.
Yeah, so it's 100% secure. I mean, we've only had a couple of ones which have hung a little bit off the side of the deck, if you want to say, which is always interesting, isn't it, when you see one coming back to port with
Well,
the side
well
hanging off.
yeah. You look at the Crew 1 booster, which is actually going to be used in Crew 2. We'll talk about that a bit
Yeah.
later. That happened to that booster, and yeah, that was interesting, especially when that booster needs to be used again, especially after its first flight.
Yeah, that was a bit of an interesting one.
Yeah,
I was skeptical about Crew 2 being used again, but I think it was only a few minor issues, so it's nothing which they haven't
yeah.
encountered before, so it shouldn't be a problem. Right, let's move on to the next question, which is, if you give me just a second to pull it up, where's that picture? There we go. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Now this one is, what is the mystery nose cone? What is the mystery nose cone?
Oh, so in fact, in the last half an hour, I've
Yeah,
asked Elon, I think, twice.
yeah, I'm gonna pull that picture up actually.
What is the mystery nose cone?
Here we go.
Hopefully replies. Obviously, that's
What is the mystery
not
nose
always.
cone? Who knows?
Yeah. So the theory is, and my thinking is that it's some sort of structural pressure article.
Yeah,
You can see like black kind of, I don't know how to describe it, on the sides,
yeah,
like where the flaps would normally be, and that could be like testing pressure or something. It's got a blunt nose cone. Not quite sure why. Because it had the tip installed that we found out yesterday.
yeah. Which I've got
And
a picture on here, which shows that it kind of installed. When I saw it at first, it was from a distance, and I thought it was going to be a TPS system. Like, you remember how they have like the black top in some of the renders?
yeah,
Yeah, I thought it could have been that,
yeah,
but in the end, I wasn't quite right with that one. But it could be anything. You know, some people are saying HLS or human landing system.
yes. There's that as well. Yeah.
But
Um,
I'd say the things on the side of it kind of tend to make that not overly
so
true, but who knows?
yeah, my best guess is it's a pressure article, but
Mm,
ultimately we don't know for sure.
yeah,
No one really does.
that's why it's a mystery.
Hopefully Elon
Hopefully.
tweets about it soon, and we'll find out.
Yeah, because I think was it the HLS mock-up, the lunar lander mock-up? Did he tweet about that in the end, or did we just end up working out that it was? Um,
Well, we kind of knew it was. 'Cause I think it had a NASA worm logo on,
yeah,
so it had to be. I think Elon did
yeah.
mention it as well. To be honest,
I
yeah.
think it was mentioned. Right, should we have another look at another question, which is, hold on, let me just get it up, which is, here it is. I haven't got a picture for this one, but it comes from Tank Watchers. What do you think about the new launch/catch tower which will be built? I'll let
Yeah.
you take
So
this one. We've already kind of mentioned it.
yeah. So briefly earlier, um, and it does seem bonkers, but it does also sound like SpaceX do have a plan. Obviously, a plan actually coming to fruition is going to be tough, but the idea behind it is that it's it helps on their mission of rapid reusability. So there's no legs; you don't have to fold them up, don't have to do anything like that. So I can see why they're doing it, and to be honest, it'll look really cool as well. So if it's successful, it will be great because you can literally catch it, um, lower it down, back into like the launch mount, get the Starship on top, and it'll be exactly what they want Starship to do. But obviously, actually doing it's going to be tough. But I love the idea because I think everyone does it. It just looks really cool, doesn't it?
It's a, it's a,
The one,
it's a great
the
idea.
one,
It's just mildly insane, you know. But
yeah,
aren't
and the
all
ones,
his ideas mildly insane at the same day?
yeah, and that is SpaceX In, and a lot of them do work. The ones like is what I'm slightly concerned about. What happens if it crashes into the launch tower? You know, stuff like that.
then it's a bad
It would not
day.
be ideal. Yeah, it's a really bad day, isn't it? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very interesting idea though.
Okay, so let's move on to our. Hold on, let me just sort this out because I've made a little mistake with this. Hold on, 2 seconds. Let me transition. It's not working. Okay, here is. What's going on here then? Hold on, 2 seconds. You can tell this is the first episode because I've made a mistake already. Here we go. Here's the question. Finally. Okay, I'll just read out the question since I can't find it. The question was, when will the high bay bar open? Which I thought was quite funny.
Look, first of all, I really want to go there. I'd
Oh.
love to fly across the Atlantic and take a trip.
Yeah. Here we go.
We don't really know, but I think there's some sort of plan to put an elevator or something. I'm not really sure how close they are to completing that,
Yeah.
or that if they've started. I'm not 100% sure. But I hope. Look, I don't really know, but hopefully it's soon, just for the sake of certain people. And I think I'm not sure it's mainly SpaceX workers, but I imagine certain people might be allowed in like the space community, let's say. And
Yeah.
it'd be really cool just to see their experience, won't it? Even if certain of us can't go.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
especially
I'm
with the
looking
current
forward to it.
situation, it could be a little bit hard to get there. But
Yeah.
I do think that it's just one of those cool things. At NASA they have people standing on top of the VAB for launches, which is pretty cool if you ask me.
Yeah.
It's kind of be a similar experience to that, but I just think it's one of those ideas where he had and he went, right, we'll do this. It sounds cool, doesn't it? Can't say I blame him personally. Okay, we've got one last question, which isn't quite about space, but it is about us. Okay, and I thought this was quite interesting. What inspired you to create this and your partner accounts? Now you've made quite a few, haven't you? Or you've founded a few, then got other people.
Yeah.
And
Do you
then
want to talk about yours quickly, and then I'll go on to mine?
I'll talk about mine first. So basically, I started mine up because I saw there was quite a lot of other people doing them, but I was like, I wanted to bring something to the coverage in a way. I felt I was enjoying watching and everything, and I just felt like I wanted to do something in a way. So that there's nothing much more to it. But then I thought when I started it, I then started thinking, right, I've got an Instagram. Okay, I'll make a Twitter, and then I thought, okay, we'll do a podcast. So it's just been one idea which started off very small, and I'm like starting to develop it and move on and just keep motivated with it in a way, which is my story, I suppose.
Yeah. So, and yeah, it's very interesting. And then, so if you look at mine, I think I originally, the first account I created was Everything SpaceX at SpaceX 360, which is I guess my main account. Last June. So my story of space, basically, I was always kind of interested in just generally the night sky. If I go out to a moon, I think, oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
And then April last year, by chance, I came across the SpaceX webcast.
Ooh.
It was a Starship mission, April 22nd last year. I still remember it, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. I remember seeing bits at the bottom of the screen of the webcast, like, what does MECO mean, and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
obviously I now know that's main engine cutoff and things like that. And so that's where I started. My second ever launch I watched was Demo 2, and that was incredible. I was already massively into it then. I was like, this is great, this is amazing. And then, so a few days after Demo 2, maybe a week, I was like, because it was kind of, there were still restrictions of COVID in the UK, wasn't doing a huge amount. I was like, look, why not let's just make a Twitter account about SpaceX and
Yeah.
let's just see where this goes. And at first, I didn't really think it might not last that long. A lot of these projects, you don't go on for that long. But something it really just motivated me to keep going and just keep going with it. And I remember initially, it's at the start, it can be quite demoralising when it doesn't seem to be getting much attention and stuff. And then just gradually over time, really, it's just got more and more attention. So, it's gone from, having your first few followers, 10 followers, 100, and now it's at like 15k ish. Hope to expand even more. And when you can like ask questions, Rocket CEOs, Toy Bruno, Peter Beck, Elon Musk,
Yeah.
all these people are really interactive. I think that's what makes it quite special sometimes as well.
Yeah.
And then,
I have to say, I'm still in the early stage of my
yeah,
spaceflight coverage journey, I suppose you could say. I mean, I started off on Twitter, and I started off with about 10 followers, maybe, let's say. And I was
yeah,
posting every now and again. It wasn't quite working for me, so I moved over to Instagram, where I'm still relatively small, but it's been picking up a lot. And I
yeah.
just tried something different, and now it just got me back into it in a way,
And
where there's a lot going on. And I have to say, my earliest probably memory of space was in primary school, in year 5 years ago, and I think it was a Soyuz launch. I knew nothing about it, and it was Tim Peake. You remember that?
yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that.
I
Yeah,
remember that. And then,
that was a great day.
yeah, and then what? Do you know what got me back into it? DMT. So
Yeah,
a lot of this, SpaceX publicity and how big they were, it got people back into it. It got people thinking about it, and I don't know about you, but it got me back into it in a way, I would say.
and I think, look, I think you've got to be careful. SpaceX aren't just the only company out there.
Oh no, not.
They
Of
aren't
course they're
like,
not.
they're not absolutely perfect, but
No.
what they're doing is inspiring plenty of people to get
Oh yeah.
interested in spaceflight, which I think really is great.
Yeah.
Um, and then in terms of like where it's gone from here, so obviously I created that account first, but I really wanted there's certain bits that I wanted to create as well. So in January, I decided to create an artist account with someone, and now that's going pretty well. And there's a number of others as well now. And my aim was just to really sort of, get people excited about this sort of new age of space exploration. And then I've teamed up with certain people to create accounts, and it's just quite enjoyable, to be honest. And I think it's just so exciting how to over the next decade, even if you look at what's happening the rest of this year, there's tons more crew missions, there's Falcon Heavy missions,
Yeah.
there's a James Webb Space Telescope launch, possibly SLS's first flight, Starship going orbital. It's just a really exciting time, and yeah, so that's kind of just
Absolutely.
our stories, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to do it for the questions. Speaking of inspiration, let's
Yes,
let's talk about a certain mission which also is to do with inspiration, shall we?
yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Go ahead.
should so I think in around February time, I think it's the beginning of February.
Mm.
SpaceX, it's not being released that they were Dragon would fly the Inspiration 4 mission,
Yeah.
and this is an all civilian mission, led by
Jared Isaacman.
Shift for Payments CEO
Oh yeah.
Jared Isaacman,
Yeah.
and he'll command the mission. He's paying the whole mission himself, paying for himself and 3 other seats. And recently, the 3 other seats have been announced, and there's Haley Arsenault,
Yeah.
Chris Sembrowski, I think that's how you say it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Shian Proctor. Um, and it's brilliant to see, everyday people, if you like, being given an opportunity to fly to space, and just to see the diversity of the crew. I think it's really special, and that will be launching. So it's a 3-day trip into space, just orbiting the Earth. There's no docking to the ISS or anything.
Yeah.
It's launching no earlier than September on Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon, and it also has a very special sort of iOS cupola like
Yeah. The
at
cupola.
Dragon's Nose
Yeah.
cone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which I wish I had a
and
picture of. I haven't pulled it up yet. I'm having some problems loading some stuff. But it's a very interesting design. I'm sure it's going to provide absolutely amazing pictures for the crew. I think that they're launching Inspiration 4. I remember hearing that it's going to a very high orbit. Um, it's going to go, I think it's something like 500 kilometers or something along them lines. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember exactly. But it's quite an interesting mission. I mean, I think it's meant to last a few days at the current. I think that it's still going to be incredible. 4 civilians which are launching. Each one of them's got their own story in a way. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think it says it's inspiration for it. It's going to be inspirational, to be totally honest. With the pictures which we'll get back, the stories from the crew, it's all going to be a pretty crazy experience.
yeah, and I have to say I'm very jealous. But
Yeah.
it's brilliant to see the fact that the commercialization of space, and that just certain people like that, and Haley Arsenault, had bone cancer at 10, and now she's flying to space.
Yeah.
Um,
If that's
15
not
years or so
inspiring, then
later,
I don't
and
know what is.
yeah, exactly. And that's what it's all about. And it's led by the brilliant Joe Eisenman. He seems absolutely great.
Yeah.
You can ask him questions on Twitter, he replies. They're all very interactive,
Mm.
and that's what it's all about. And I think that's one of the most exciting missions coming
Prospects.
up this
Yeah.
year, to be honest. And then talking of crew missions,
Talking of
um,
crew missions, we've got
there's
a very big crew mission coming up.
there's also the upcoming
Crew
Crew
2.
2 mission,
Yep.
launching
About
um,
just under 2 weeks
April
now.
the
Just under 2 weeks,
April
I think.
22nd. So yeah, um, one day under 2 weeks.
Yep.
Um, Shane Kimber, Shannon Walker. No,
Yeah.
that's Crew 1. Megan
No, no.
MacArthur.
Which is actually very interesting to know. That is Bob Bankin's wife who
Yeah,
flew on
yeah.
DM2, which is
Um,
pretty
that's
cool.
pretty cool, I got to say. And
Yeah.
there's also Aki Hayidi. I'm
I,
not quite sure.
yeah.
Excuse my pronunciation.
I haven't heard it mentioned in an interview yet, so I
Yeah,
haven't got a clue.
yeah, exactly. And
I'm
there's
sure
Thomas
we'll know
Pesky as
soon.
well,
Yeah.
who's European Space Agency
So
astronaut.
so it's two NASA
Um,
astronauts commanding and piloting the vehicle.
yeah,
And then you'll have, so you've got a JAXA astronaut, which is MS1, I believe, Mission Specialist 1, and then you've got an ESA astronaut as Mission Specialist 2. So that's why this morning with Soyuz MS-18, am I right, MS-18?
yeah. So
Yeah,
that launched this morning.
carrying,
Mark Van der Hey, I think, was the
carrying a
NASA
NASA
astronaut on
astronaut.
board,
Yeah.
and two cosmonauts. And that's just successfully docked, literally right this second.
Oh, has it? Oh,
Um,
right.
yeah,
That's
soft capture.
soft capture, okay.
Um, so they're now 10 crew members
Yeah, and
on
then
board the
yeah,
ISS.
and when we have Crew 2 launch, that's going to be 8 from Crew
It's gonna
Dragon.
be
That's going to be 11 crew
it's gonna be
members on
11,
board.
yeah.
It's only for a few
And the
days,
record's
but
13. The record's 13, so we're not really that far off. So
we're not one bit at all.
yeah, so that's very interesting, and that's great to see as well. And then there's also commercial civilian astronauts going to the ISS start of next year as part of Axiom 1, which is very interesting. And before we wrap up, do you want to let's quickly discuss a very small bit about Rocket Lab and
Yeah,
ULA and
of course,
upcoming missions
of
and
course.
and
Oh,
past missions.
I have got a picture, I think, of that, of a certain ULA mission somewhere. Here it is.
Perfect.
NRO 82. I was trying to remember that it was 82.
That's it. So NRO 82, Delta Heavy mission.
Yeah.
The payload has been encapsulated and it's been stacked.
Very
and
secretive over this one.
at Vandenberg, yeah.
Okay,
And
photo load.
it's
There we
meant
go.
to be launching April 26th.
Yep.
Obviously, scrubs can be very likely.
Yeah,
but
with the last Delta 4
it's
heavy missions to go anything to go by.
Yeah, but it's one of my favourite rockets, I've got to say.
Yeah.
And I think when it launched in the night, you get the fireball.
Yeah.
It's an impressive event. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's
There's also ULA have got a few more missions coming this year. There's Starliner. There's
very important. OFT2.
yeah
Yeah.
in July, and there's also definitely at least one Atlas mission in
Yeah.
May.
Vulcan this year.
And yeah, that as well. So
Yeah, which I thought was very interesting, which I saw the other day, is that Vulcan's first mission is going to be to the lunar orbit, basically, which I thought was very cool to hear. For a first mission.
Yeah.
Usually you expect a mass simulator, but
yeah, exactly. But things they've tested all the components in different
Yeah.
ways on the apps and stuff. So
absolutely.
yeah. And then Rocket Lab, they recently launched a few small satellites. Was perfectly
Yeah.
successful. Also testing out their Photon spacecraft ahead of
Yeah.
it taking a trip to the moon on the Capstone mission later this year.
Yeah, which is very
which-
interesting with the
And
new.
they updated us. Yeah.
With the new, what is it called? Is it the Deep Space Photon they call it?
Yeah,
I think it's something like that.
something like that. I think.
It's something like
Yeah.
that, yeah, where they have
Um.
the Hypercurie engine in it, which is a bigger version of the usual kickstage ending, which will debut, I
And
think, for that launch.
that's incredibly exciting. And
Yeah,
then, in fact, yesterday, they first announced Photon was testing well, their second
yeah,
Photon after their most recent launch, and also the upcoming mission they announced yesterday will be they will be recovering the booster under parachute,
they sure will.
like they did last year once. Um, so that's very exciting, and we'll get many more camera views.
Yeah,
So it's a very exciting time.
they're getting very close. If they do a couple more parachute lands, I think they're getting very close to trying their helicopter scoop of of not the fairing of the first stage, which is very interesting, and I think it's showing their reusability before. They've recently announced Neutron, obviously, for 2024, which is not as far away as some people may think. In terms of rocket
Yeah,
development time, that's pretty close. Certainly for a new project. We could, they're getting used to reusability. They're trying under parachutes. And that ultimately Neutron should be propulsively landing, which will be a very good sight to
that's
see.
very good. I
But
think
yeah, you can see the development of
what
Rocket Lab.
just while chatting about all this space stuff, what just to sum it up, what we've really learned, I think, is just how much there is going right now. Right
Yeah,
now, there's Starship, this Mars rocket, hope heading to Mars in sometime this decade. There's Ingenuity, a Mars helicopter about to fly in the next 2 days. There's a number of different missions, exciting missions, upcoming new rockets coming really soon,
mm,
and it just shows how this new age of space exploration is really genuine. And compared to you could see the slight lull of the last 2 decades,
yeah.
it's really starting to hot up now, and I think that's kind of a good way to summarise and
There's a
like
lot to be
finish.
excited about, and there's a lot to talk about. So, um, yeah, this is probably one of the most busiest years in spaceflight we've seen for quite a while now, and certainly
Yeah,
with the most development. Yeah, I think there's a lot to come, and there's going to be a lot to get interested about and a lot to get excited about. And I think that's all I've got to say for today. I don't know about you.
yeah, I think that's just about it. And thanks very much for having me on.
No, that's quite
I've really
alright.
enjoyed it. It's been great,
Yeah, it's
and
been
yeah, it's
nice to have a
been very interesting.
very much just a chat, in a way.
Yeah,
I think that I've got a few of these coming on. I'm going to try and get a few more guests. I know I'm in talks with
perfect.
a certain ULA
Yeah,
CEO. I'm not going to say who,
yeah.
but
Don't want to give that away.
no, I don't want to give it away. But we'll have to see how that goes. But that's something very, very exciting, especially for myself with a small account. And I think hopefully there's plenty more of these podcasts to come. With certainly more guests like yourself, because it's been very good. Um,
Thank you.
no, that's my pleasure. And I think that's going to do us. Thank you for watching.
Perfect. So thank you very much. See you
And
guys soon.
I'll see you in the next one. Bye.